Meet two people. Same city. Same year. Same salary. David is 34 years old. He just crossed $110,000 a year at his company. He has a nice apartment in a good neighborhood, a car he's proud of, and a social life that looks great on the surface. He takes one vacation a year, usually somewhere warm, usually on a credit card. He tells himself he'll start investing seriously when things calm down. Things haven't calmed down in 6 years. His savings account has about $1,400 in it. He checks his bank app, puts his phone down, and feels a weight he can't quite name. Now meet Sarah. She's 36. She earns $94,000. She lives in a smaller apartment 2 neighborhoods over. She drives a car she bought used in 2019. Her friends sometimes wonder why she doesn't upgrade. She maxes out her retirement account every year, invests a fixed amount on the first of every month regardless of how she feels, and has a net worth that just crossed $280,000. She doesn't think about money every day. She thinks about what she actually wants her life to look like. Same city. Same era. 40-mile radius of each other. One person makes more money. The other one is building wealth. And the uncomfortable truth is that David, the one making more, genuinely cannot understand why he still feels behind. Pause. Music fades in softly. This isn't a story about income. It's a story about the invisible rules that determine whether money works for you or against you, rules that nobody teaches you when you get your first paycheck, your first raise, or your first 6-figure salary. And what makes this particularly frustrating is that the people caught in this trap are not irresponsible. They're not reckless. They're actually trying. They're educated, they're working hard, they're doing the things society told them would lead to financial security. And they're still waking up at 2 in the morning wondering where all the money went. I'm going to show you the exact rules that separate people who earn well and feel trapped from people who earn slightly less and feel genuinely free. These aren't complicated. They're not secret. But most people will go their entire lives without applying them, and they'll never understand why the numbers on their paychecks never match the feeling of financial security they were promised. Transition to core content. Rule 1. Your lifestyle will always expand to fill your income unless you design it not to. This is the foundation of everything. Most people understand this concept on the surface. They've heard of lifestyle inflation. They nod when someone mentions it. And then they get a raise and immediately start spending more without ever making a conscious decision to do so. Here's how it actually happens. You get a promotion. Your monthly take-home goes up by, let's say, $600 after taxes. You don't sit down and decide to spend more. But within 3 months, your subscriptions have quietly grown, you've upgraded your gym, you're eating out slightly more often, and your grocery bill has crept up because you're buying better wine. No single decision felt extravagant. But the $600 is gone, and you've built a lifestyle that now requires that $600 just to maintain. The hidden consequence is that your raise didn't improve your financial position. It just reset your baseline upward. And now you need the next raise just to feel the same way you did before. The psychological insight here is that humans are remarkably good at adapting to new conditions. Researchers call this hedonic adaptation. You stop noticing the upgrade almost immediately after you make it. The nicer apartment becomes the normal apartment. The better car becomes just your car. And the emotional lift you expected from earning more fades faster than you expected it to. So you look for the next upgrade to chase that feeling again. People who escape this trap don't fight their natural drive to upgrade. They just decide in advance, before the raise arrives, exactly where the additional money is going. They automate it. The raise hits the account and moves directly to investments before it ever has a chance to become a lifestyle expense. Rule 2. The first financial decision you make when you earn more is the most important one you'll ever make. Most people make the wrong one without realizing it. When income increases, there's a window. It's maybe 60 to 90 days long. During that window, your lifestyle hasn't caught up yet. You're still living on your old salaries habits. If you use that window to redirect the difference into savings or investments before your spending adjusts, you've essentially made money appear from nowhere. You've captured the raise before your lifestyle can absorb it. But here's what most people miss. That window closes quickly, and once it closes, it becomes extraordinarily difficult to claw that money back from your lifestyle. Cutting back feels like deprivation. Spending less feels like going backward. So most people just don't do it. The practical version of this rule looks like this. The week you receive a raise or a new income source, you immediately increase your automatic investment contribution by at least 50% of the after-tax difference. You live on the other half. You feel the upgrade slightly. You also capture real wealth-building capacity. Both things happen at once. Most people do neither. They let the full raise flow into their checking account and trust themselves to manage it manually. They don't. Nobody does. The account absorbs it. Rule 3. A high income is not the same thing as financial stability. And confusing the two is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make. This one is deeply counterintuitive because the world treats high earners as though they are, by definition, financially secure. They get better loan terms. People assume they're fine. Even their own families stop worrying about them. And that social validation quietly reinforces the belief that having a large income means having financial safety. It doesn't. Financial stability is a function of your assets relative to your obligations, not your income relative to other people's incomes. A person earning $45,000 with no debt, 3 months of expenses saved, and consistent investment contributions is significantly more financially stable than a person earning $120,000 with a $650,000 mortgage, 2 car payments, and no emergency fund. The dangerous part of this confusion is that it delays action. When you believe your income makes you secure, you stop building the actual structures of security, the savings buffer, the invested assets, the reduced obligations. You assume the income will always be there. And when it isn't, when the layoff happens, when the medical bill arrives, when the business takes a loss, the high-income lifestyle has a remarkably fast collapse point. It gets worse. People in this situation often can't take career risks because they need every dollar of their current income just to sustain their current life. They can't leave the job they hate. They can't take a salary cut for a better opportunity. They can't start the business. Their income is simultaneously high and completely non-negotiable, which means it controls them rather than the other way around. Rule 4. Debt you took on to appear wealthy is the most effective wealth destruction tool ever created. Not all debt is equal. A mortgage on a reasonably priced home in a growing area at a manageable payment relative to your income is not the same as financing a luxury vehicle because you felt you'd earned it. The car example is worth sitting with. A $65,000 car financed at 6% over 5 years costs you $1,256 a month. Over the life of the loan, you'll pay approximately $75,360 total. The car, by the time the loan is paid off, is likely worth somewhere between $28,000 and $35,000. You've spent $75,000 to own a $30,000 asset. And during those 5 years, if that $1,256 monthly had gone into an index fund averaging 7% annual returns, you would have accumulated approximately $90,000. That's a 6-figure decision disguised as a monthly payment that seemed manageable. But here's what most people miss. It's not just the money. It's the permission the debt gives you not to think carefully. When you're making payments, you feel like you're being responsible. You're meeting your obligations. You're not behind. The psychological relief of "I'm making my payments" masks the fact that you're running a wealth destruction machine every single month. The psychological insight is this. Debt purchased for status signals to others that you have already arrived. It performs success. And in a social environment where people are constantly assessing and comparing, performing success feels almost as good as actually achieving it, at least temporarily. The problem is that performing success costs you the actual ability to achieve it. Rule 5. Your savings rate is the single most powerful variable in your financial life, and it's the one most people refuse to control. Not your investment returns. Not your salary. Your savings rate. Here's the math, and I want you to actually sit with it. If you save 10% of your income, you are funding 1 month of future financial freedom for every 9 months you work. If you save 25%, you are funding 1 month of future freedom for every 3 months you work. If you save 50%, Every month you work buys you a month of freedom. At a 50% savings rate, the math suggests you could achieve complete financial independence in roughly 17 years, regardless of your income level, assuming average investment returns. At a 10% savings rate, you're looking at 40+ years. And most Americans are saving somewhere between 3 and 8%, which means the retirement they're working toward mathematically requires them to work until they're in their mid to late 60s, regardless of what they earn in the meantime. The hidden consequence of a low savings rate isn't just a later retirement. It's that you have no buffer, no optionality. Every financial decision you make has to be made under duress, because you have no cushion between where you are and where problems start. That scarcity of options is exhausting in a way that's hard to quantify, but impossible to ignore if you're living it. Nobody talks about this plainly enough. A person earning $100,000 with a 40% savings rate is building faster than a person earning $180,000 with a 7% savings rate. Income matters far less than the gap between what comes in and what you keep. Rule 6. Every dollar you spend has an opportunity cost, and most people are spending in ways that will cost them $1,000 for every 100 they think they're spending. This is not about being frugal. It's about being honest. When you spend $200 on a dinner that didn't particularly matter to you, you're not spending $200. You're spending $200 plus the compounded growth that $200 would have generated. At 7% annual returns, $200 invested today becomes approximately $1,500 in 40 years. That dinner cost you $1,500 in future wealth. You just paid with future money. Now, I'm not suggesting you never spend money. Spending on things that genuinely add to your quality of life is completely rational. The point is that most people are spending significant sums on things that add almost nothing to their actual happiness. They're just habitual, or convenient, or socially expected. The exercise that changes this for most people is simple. For 30 days, after every non-essential purchase, write down not just the price, but how much you actually valued that purchase. Not theoretically. How much did it actually add to your day, your week, your life? Most people discover that a startling percentage of what they spend is either forgettable, regrettable, or both. The psychological insight is that spending feels like freedom in the moment. Saving feels like restriction. But that feeling is backwards. Spending reduces your future optionality. Saving builds it. The person with $300,000 invested has significantly more freedom in their daily life than the person who spent that $300,000 over a decade on things they no longer remember. Rule 7. You will never think your way to financial discipline. Systems are the only thing that works reliably. I'm going to say something that most personal finance content avoids because it isn't flattering. Willpower doesn't work. Motivation doesn't work. Knowing the right things to do doesn't work. Not reliably. Not consistently. Not across years and decades. What works is removing the decision entirely. Every financial behavior that depends on you making the right choice in the moment is a behavior that will eventually fail. You'll have a hard day. You'll feel like you deserve something. You'll be in a situation where spending is the social norm and saving is awkward. And you'll override your good intentions because humans always do. The solution is to automate everything important before the money lands in a place where you can easily access it. Your retirement contributions come out before you see the paycheck. Your investment transfer happens on the first of every month before you've had time to find something to spend it on. Your emergency fund is in a different bank with no debit card attached to it, and getting money out requires a 3-day waiting period. This isn't about distrust of yourself. It's about honesty with yourself. You are going to have moments where your judgment is impaired by stress, emotion, or social pressure. The system exists to make those moments financially irrelevant. David, from our opening story, relies entirely on willpower. He plans to invest when he feels financially comfortable. He's been planning this for 6 years. The threshold of comfort moves further away every year because he keeps spending up to his income. There is no system. There is only intention. And intention, without structure, is almost always insufficient. Rule 8. The people around you are setting your financial ceiling more than any other single factor, and most people never examine this. This is the one that makes people uncomfortable. But it's too important to soften. We calibrate our spending to our social group. If your friends are spending $200 on dinner regularly, you will spend $200 on dinner. If your colleagues are leasing cars above their means, you will feel pressure to do the same. If the culture of your social environment treats frugality as embarrassing and spending as celebration, you will either conform or feel socially isolated. This isn't weakness. It's deeply human. We evolved in small groups where social belonging was literal survival. The financial consequences of social conformity weren't relevant for most of human history. They're extremely relevant now. The hidden cost of a high-spending social environment is that it resets your baseline for what's normal and expected. A $300 weekend becomes ordinary. A $4,000 vacation becomes the minimum acceptable version of a vacation. And anything below that floor starts to feel like deprivation even when, objectively, it's completely sufficient. The people who escape this don't necessarily change their friendships, but they become conscious of the dynamic. They stop outsourcing their financial decisions to the implicit expectations of their social group. They make choices based on what they actually value rather than what the group implicitly requires. And here's the part nobody talks about. Finding even one or two people in your life who are intentional about money changes everything. It normalizes a different set of behaviors. It gives you a reference point outside your primary social group. It makes the choices easier because they feel less like going against the current. Rule 9. Investment returns are almost irrelevant if you haven't solved the behavior problem first. People spend enormous energy trying to optimize their investment returns. They read about stock picks, they watch market commentary, they agonize over whether to put money in this fund or that one. And all of that energy is almost entirely wasted if they haven't first solved the basic behavior problem. The average investor earns significantly less than the market returns because of behavioral errors. They sell when markets drop. They buy when markets are high because excitement is high. They move money around based on news cycles and emotion. The Spiva reports and Dalbar studies consistently show this. The market might return 7 or 8% annually. The average investor captures 4 or 5% of that because of timing errors driven by emotion. The math is straightforward. Someone who invests consistently at a modest return, never panicking, never overreacting, will dramatically outperform someone who picks better investments but makes behavioral errors throughout. The enemy isn't a bad portfolio. The enemy is yourself acting on feelings. The only reliable solution is automation combined with a clear written investment policy that you read during volatile markets. The policy says things like, I will not sell during a market decline of less than 30%. I will not check my portfolio more than once per quarter. I will not change my investment allocation based on news. You write this when you're calm and rational, and you follow it when you're not. Rule 10. Most people optimize for income when they should be optimizing for net worth. These are not the same thing. Income is a flow. Net worth is a stock. Chasing income without accumulating net worth is like filling a bathtub with the drain open. You can keep turning up the faucet, but the tub never fills. The practical difference looks like this. A person who earns $100,000 and spends $95,000 has a net worth that barely moves each year despite impressive income. A person who earns $70,000 and spends $45,000 is building $25,000 in net worth every year, which compounds into something significant over a decade. After 10 years, the first person might have $50,000 to $60,000 saved if they're lucky. The second person, with disciplined investment of that annual surplus, could have $350,000 or more, depending on returns. This is David versus Sarah. Not just in philosophy, in the actual numbers. The gap between their financial positions is not explained by their incomes. It's explained by the gap between what they earn and what they keep, multiplied by time. The hidden consequence of optimizing for income alone is that it creates the illusion of progress. Your salary is going up. Your title is advancing. Every external marker says you're doing well. But your net worth, which is the only number that ultimately matters for financial independence, might be barely moving. Rule 11. The more complex your financial life, the more likely you are to lose track of where money is actually going. Complexity is the enemy of financial clarity. Most high earners have complicated financial lives, multiple accounts, various subscriptions and memberships, a mix of credit cards with different reward programs, investments spread across several platforms, employer benefits they've never fully understood, insurance policies they haven't reviewed since signing them. Each individual element seems manageable. Together, they create enough friction that most people stop paying attention to the whole picture. And when you stop paying attention to the whole picture, money leaks in dozens of small ways that add up to thousands of dollars per year. The subscription economy is particularly effective at exploiting this. The average American underestimates their monthly subscription spending by about 40%. Small recurring charges are psychologically invisible. They don't feel like decisions because you made the decision once, long ago. But they keep extracting money month after month, often for services you rarely use or have forgotten entirely. The rule is simple even if applying it requires effort. Once a year, export every transaction from every account and review it by category. Every single recurring charge, every subscription, every automatic renewal. You will find things you don't recognize. You will find things you forgot existed. You will cancel things you haven't used in 18 months. This single annual exercise consistently recovers hundreds to thousands of dollars in spending that was producing no value. Rule 12. Financial stress is not caused by a lack of money. It's caused by uncertainty about the future. This is one of the most important reframes in personal finance, and almost nobody frames it this way. If you ask high earners why they feel financially stressed, most will say they don't earn enough. But if you probe deeper, what emerges is uncertainty. They don't know if they're on track. They don't know if they could handle an unexpected expense. They don't know what their number is, the amount they'd need to feel genuinely secure. They're operating without a map, and the anxiety comes from not knowing where they are relative to any meaningful destination. The cure for financial stress is almost never more income. It's clarity. Knowing exactly what you have, exactly what you owe, exactly what you're saving, and exactly where that puts you relative to a specific, written goal. When those four things are clear, even a modest financial position feels manageable. When they're murky, even a substantial income feels insufficient. The practical application is to write down your actual number. Not a vague, I want to be comfortable. A specific number. The amount you'd need invested to cover your annual expenses indefinitely, which financial planning generally calculates as 25 times your annual spending at a safe withdrawal rate. When you know that number and you know where you are relative to it, the anxiety has somewhere specific to land. And it usually turns out to be less paralyzing when it's concrete than when it's a formless cloud of worry. Rule 13. Tax efficiency is a second income that most people at this earning level are leaving entirely on the table. At $100,000 of income, you are in a position to make tax decisions that materially change your financial trajectory. Most people make none of them. The retirement account math is worth stating explicitly. If you are in the 22% federal tax bracket and you contribute the maximum to a traditional 401k, which is $23,500 as of 2024, you have reduced your taxable income by $23,500, saving roughly $5,170 in federal taxes in that year alone. That $5,170 is money you would have sent to the government that instead stays in your investment account. Do this for 20 years and the compounded effect of that annual tax savings invested is a figure that changes retirements. But here's what most people miss. Most people don't contribute the maximum because they feel they can't afford it. But when you run the actual math, a $23,500 contribution doesn't reduce your take-home pay by $23,500. Because the contribution is pre-tax, it reduces your take-home by approximately $18,330 after accounting for the tax savings. You contribute $23,500. Your paycheck only shrinks by $18,330. The government funds the rest of your retirement contribution. This is money that is available to high earners and simply not being used. It's the financial equivalent of a coupon that never expires and most people never clip. Rule 14. Every financial decision you make is also a decision about how much of your life you're selling, and most people forget to do that math. Money is not the point. Time is the point. Money is just the mechanism by which you buy back your time. Here is a question worth sitting with seriously. When you spend $30,000 on a car upgrade you didn't really need, how many hours of your life did that cost you? At $100,000 salary, your after-tax hourly rate is roughly $40 to $48 per hour. $30,000 is somewhere between 625 and 750 hours of your working life. That's nearly 4 months of full-time work. You traded 4 months of your life for a car upgrade. This isn't meant to create guilt. It's meant to create honesty. Because most of us, when we actually do this calculation for a purchase that ended up being forgettable, feel a genuine shift in how we evaluate future spending. The question stops being, can I afford this? Which is too easy a threshold to clear, and becomes, is this worth that many hours of my life? That's a much more useful question. The people who achieve financial independence at unexpectedly early ages are almost universally people who internalize this exchange rate. They feel the weight of their time in a way that others don't. And that feeling makes the trade-offs clear in ways that abstract dollar amounts never quite do. Rule 15. The goal is not to have the most money. The goal is to reach the point where money stops being a daily source of stress, and then design your life from there. This rule exists because personal finance content, including this video, can create a new kind of trap. The optimization trap. The trap where accumulating wealth becomes the point rather than the means to an end. There are people who achieve genuine financial security and then discover they have no idea what they actually want. They've spent so much energy solving the money problem that they never asked the question money was supposed to answer, which is, what do I actually want my life to look like? The most useful version of financial planning starts at the other end. You decide what a genuinely good life looks like for you specifically. Not the life that looks impressive to others. Not the life you think you're supposed to want. The actual life you'd choose if you were designing it with full honesty. And then you figure out the financial structure that makes that life possible. For some people, that number is quite modest. For others, it's significant. But knowing what you're building toward changes everything about how you make day-to-day decisions. It gives you a reason to say no to things that don't serve the goal and yes to things that do. It turns financial discipline from a sacrifice into a strategy. Transition to closing. I want to go back to David and Sarah. Because the difference in their financial positions didn't happen because David made a series of catastrophic mistakes. He didn't. He worked hard. He got promoted. He earned more money than most people will ever earn. The gap between them is made up entirely of small, ordinary, invisible decisions compounded over time. David got his raises and absorbed them into his lifestyle. Sarah captured hers before her lifestyle could adjust. David relied on his future self to make better decisions. Sarah built systems that removed the decision entirely. David optimized for income and for how his life looked to others. Sarah optimized for net worth and for how her life felt to her. David stayed in a high-spending social environment and calibrated his expectations to it. Sarah found people who thought differently about money and let that recalibrate her sense of normal. Neither of them was doing something dramatically right or dramatically wrong. The outcomes were built from thousands of tiny choices that nobody was watching. And this is the part that matters most. If you're sitting here recognizing David in yourself, recognizing the income that doesn't quite feel like it's working, the vague wait when you open your bank app, the sense that you should be further along by now, this is not a character flaw. This is a design problem. Your financial life is producing the results it's designed to produce. And almost no one designs it intentionally. The rules in this video are not complicated. They don't require a financial degree. They don't require earning more or inheriting something or getting lucky. They require a decision about what you're actually building and then the patience to build it one ordinary month at a time. Here's the line I want to leave you with. You can spend your income performing a life you think you're supposed to want, or you can invest it building the freedom to want whatever you actually choose. Those two lives, from the outside, might look identical for years. On the inside, they feel completely different. And 10 years from now, the numbers will tell the whole story. The question is which story yours is going to tell. Oh, Utiro, a soft music, no rush. End card. If this video made you think differently about one thing, just one, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want the next video in this series, it covers the exact framework for designing your number, the specific figure that means you're financially free, and the reverse-engineered roadmap to get there.